I stood in the driveway, keys still warm in my hand, watching a stranger drive away in my Honda Civic. The car I'd worked 3 jobs to buy. The car that got me to work every single day. My mother smiled beside me, her arm around my brother Tyler's shoulders. "Your car paid for his future," she said, like she'd just given me a gift. Tyler wouldn't even look at me. That was 5 years ago. Today, he walked into my corner office for his interview. I smiled back. The memory dissolved as Tyler stood before my desk, resume clutched in trembling hands. "But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how I got here." Sitting in this leather chair with the city sprawling below me through floor-to-ceiling windows. "You need to know what happened after that driveway betrayal. The morning after they sold my car, I woke at 4:30. My alarm clock's red numbers felt like an accusation. I had to be at work by 9, and according to the bus route I'd mapped out the night before, the journey would take 2.5 hours. 2 buses, 1 transfer, and a 15-minute walk from the final stop. I called my parents before leaving. My father Richard answered on the 5th ring, his voice thick with sleep and irritation. "Dad, I need help," I said, hating how my voice cracked. "I can't get to work without a car. Can you at least help me buy something used? Just a few $1,000s. I'll pay you back." His response was ice. "Tyler's MBA is an investment, Gabrielle. A real investment in a real future. Your job is just a job. You'll figure something out. You always do." Before I could respond, my mother Linda picked up the extension. "You're being dramatic again. This is exactly why we knew Tyler needed our support more than you. Take the bus. Plenty of people managed just fine." They hung up together. I left my apartment in darkness, walked 6 blocks to the first bus stop, and watched my breath fog in the October air. The bus was crowded with people heading to early shifts, their faces blank with exhaustion. I recognized my own future in their eyes. I arrived at work at 8:55, 5 minutes before my shift. My boss, Patricia, stood by my desk, arms crossed. She was a woman in her 50s who wore her authority like armor, sharp and unyielding. "Cutting it close," she said. "I'm on time," I replied, setting down my bag. "Barely." That first week was agony. I left home in darkness and returned in darkness. My days became a blur of bus schedules, strangers' elbows in my ribs, and the constant anxiety of connection times. If one bus ran late, I'd miss the transfer. If I missed the transfer, I'd be late to work. On Friday evening, exhausted beyond measure, I scrolled through social media and found Tyler's post. A photo of him grinning outside his business school, caption reading, "First week down, so grateful to my amazing parents for believing in me and making this dream possible. None of this would be happening without their support and sacrifice." The comments overflowed with congratulations. Friends, relatives, acquaintances, all praising his achievement, praising our parents' generosity. Not one mention of me. Not one mention of whose sacrifice actually paid his tuition. I tried to save money for another car, but the math was crushing. Rent, utilities, food, bus fare. My salary at the marketing firm barely stretched to cover basics. After 3 months of this grinding routine, I was saving maybe $50 a month. At that rate, I'd have enough for a decent used car in approximately 3 years. I swallowed my pride and called Tyler directly. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice bright with the energy of someone whose life was going exactly as planned. "Hey, Gabrielle. What's up?" "I need help," I said, the words like gravel in my throat. "I need to borrow money for a car. Just a loan. I'll pay you back with interest." Silence stretched between us. Then, "I can't help you right now. I need to focus on my future, on networking, on building connections. You understand, right? You're the one who always talks about being independent and figuring things out on your own." The cruelty of using my own words against me stole my breath. "Tyler, they sold my car. The car I bought with my own money from 3 jobs. They sold it without asking me, and they gave you that money. I didn't ask them to do that, but you took it. What was I supposed to do?" His voice rose with defensive anger. "Turn down business school? Throw away my future because you're bitter?" I hung up. 3 months became 4, then 5. I was perpetually exhausted. Patricia started making comments about my appearance, about my energy levels. About the quality of my work. I tried to explain about the commute, about the circumstances, but her expression remained carved from stone. On a Tuesday morning in March, 6 months after they sold my car, I was called into Patricia's office. I thought maybe she'd noticed my dedication. 6 months of arriving on time despite a brutal commute. 6 months of never complaining. Never asking for special treatment. I thought maybe she'd offer me a small raise, something to help me finally save for a car. Instead, she fired me. "Your work quality has declined significantly," she said, not meeting my eyes. "You seem exhausted all the time, distracted. We need someone more present, more engaged. I'm sorry, but we're letting you go." "You're firing me for being tired?" "I'm terminating your employment due to decreased performance. You'll receive 2 weeks severance." I walked out of that building in a daze. 2 weeks severance. That would cover maybe 1 month's rent if I was lucky. I stood at the bus stop, watching cars stream past, and realized the full scope of what my family had done. They'd sacrificed my stability for Tyler's potential. They'd stolen my independence and called it love. And now I had nothing. No car, no job, no savings, and a family that saw my suffering as acceptable collateral damage for their golden child's success. The bus arrived. I climbed aboard and found a seat by the window. A woman across the aisle was crying quietly, and I wondered what had broken her heart. I wondered if anyone had sold her life out from under her while smiling and calling it a gift. That night, I applied for unemployment benefits and started searching for new jobs. But job hunting without a car in a sprawling American city is like trying to swim with concrete shoes. Most positions required reliable transportation. Those that didn't were either too far away or paid too little to matter. I was drowning, and the people who'd pushed me under were celebrating their good deed. 2 months of unemployment taught me new definitions of desperation. I applied for over 200 positions. I tailored each resume, each cover letter. I lied on applications, checking the box that said I had reliable transportation, praying I'd figure it out if anyone called. A few did call. I burned through my tiny emergency fund on rideshare services to interviews across town. At one interview, the hiring manager seemed impressed until I arrived sweating and anxious, having run 3 blocks because my rideshare got stuck in traffic. At another, I was asked point blank if I had a car. I hesitated 1 second too long. They saw the truth in my face. My savings evaporated. I ate rice and beans for weeks. I avoided phone calls from my landlord. I sat in my apartment as spring arrived outside my window, and I felt the walls pressing closer. In June, my parents invited me to a family dinner. The invitation came via my mother's text. "Celebrating Tyler's amazing first year, 7 p.m. Saturday. Try to come." I almost didn't go. But some poisonous part of me needed to see them. Needed to ask for help one final time before I gave up completely. Their house looked the same as always. Warm lights glowing through windows, my father's car in the driveway next to my mother's. Normal, perfect, untouched by consequence. Tyler answered the door with a young woman beside him, her hand in his. She was pretty, with blonde hair and a genuine smile. "Gabrielle, this is Amanda, my girlfriend." "Amanda, this is my sister." Amanda's handshake was warm. "Tyler talks about you all the time. It's so nice to finally meet you." I wondered what version of me existed in Tyler's stories. Probably not the one they'd left stranded and jobless. Dinner was torture. My parents asked Tyler question after question about business school, his professors, his classmates, his internship prospects. Tyler glowed under their attention, describing networking events and case studies and recruitment opportunities. I pushed food around my plate and stayed silent. Finally, my mother turned to me. "And how are you doing, Gabrielle?" "I lost my job," I said. The table went quiet. My father set down his fork. "What happened?" my mother asked, her tone suggesting I'd done something wrong. My boss said I seemed too tired, too distracted. Probably because I was spending 5 hours a day on buses. Tyler looked down at his plate. Amanda glanced between us, sensing tension she didn't understand. My father cleared his throat. "Well, maybe this is a sign you should reconsider your career path. Find something more stable, more suitable." "I loved that job," I said. "I was good at it until I couldn't get there anymore." My mother's smile was thin. "Tyler's going to be making 6 figures right out of school. Maybe he can help you then." I turned to my brother. Can you help me now? He shifted uncomfortably. Amanda squeezed his hand. Things are tight with school, he said. All my summer internship money is going toward next semester's expenses. I'd heard enough. I stood, chair scraping against hardwood. I need $2,000 for a used car. Just a loan. I'll sign papers. Pay interest, whatever you want. But I need help. My father's expression hardened. We can't enable your poor planning, Gabrielle. You need to learn to manage better. Take responsibility for your choices. The irony was suffocating. They'd made the choice to sell my car. I was drowning in the consequences of their decision. You gave Tyler $30,000 for one semester, I said quietly. That money could have bought me 10 cars. But you won't lend me $2,000. That was an investment, my father said. Tyler had potential. He had a plan. What do you have? I left without answering. What did I have? Nothing. They'd made sure of that. Back in my apartment, I sat on my floor and cried until my throat was raw. Rent was due in 1 week. I had $300 in my account. I'd already maxed out the overdraft protection. I had no family who would help me. No safety net. No options. I was 27 years old, and I'd hit bottom. The next day, I forced myself to leave the apartment. I couldn't stand the walls anymore. The silence. The weight of my failures. I walked to a coffee shop 10 blocks away, one I'd loved before the car situation but could no longer afford. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a small black coffee, and sat by the window watching people pass by with purpose and direction. Gabrielle? I looked up. Margaret stood there, a woman I'd worked with at the marketing firm. She'd left about 6 months before I was fired. We'd been friendly but not close. Margaret. Can I sit? I nodded. She slid into the chair across from me, setting down her own coffee. I heard what happened, she said. Patricia fired you. Word travels fast. That place is a gossip mill. She studied me carefully. You look exhausted. Something about her directness, her lack of pity, made me tell her everything. The car, my family, the impossible commute, the firing, the unemployment, the desperation. Words poured out of me like a dam breaking. When I finished, Margaret sat back, processing. Patricia's a piece of work, she said finally. Did anyone tell you why I left? I assumed you got a better offer. I did, but that's not why I left. I left because I reported Patricia for embezzlement. My coffee went cold in my hands as she explained. Patricia had been skimming money from client accounts for over a year, hiding it through fake vendor invoices and creative accounting. Margaret discovered it accidentally, reported it to upper management, and was promptly forced out through a hostile work environment. The company's under investigation now, Margaret said, but Patricia covered her tracks well. She needed chaos to hide what she was doing. Firing you, claiming performance issues, creating instability in the department. You were collateral damage. The injustice of it stung fresh. I'd lost everything, and it wasn't even really about me. So where are you working now? I asked. Tech startup. Small company called Connect Core. We do B2B software platforms. It's risky, but the energy is incredible. She paused. We're looking for a marketing person. Someone who can build our strategy from nothing. Someone creative who's not afraid to work hard. My heart started beating faster. The salary is 20% higher than what you were making at the old place. The office is in the Riverside district, walking distance from those apartments on 3rd Street. That's my neighborhood, I whispered. I know, I remembered. Margaret pulled out a business card. Come in Monday for an interview. It's not guaranteed, but I think you'd be perfect. And Gabrielle? It's a startup. We could fail in 6 months, but we could also become something amazing. High risk, high reward. I took the card, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. Hope is a dangerous thing when you're at rock bottom. It hurts more than hopelessness, because it requires you to believe in possibility again. But sitting there with Margaret's business card warm in my hand, I chose to hurt. I chose to hope. I went home and prepared for that interview like my life depended on it. Because it did. I got the job. Margaret hired me on the spot after a 2-hour interview where I presented ideas I developed during my unemployment. Strategies for B2B marketing in the tech sector, plans for building brand awareness on a startup budget, creative approaches to customer acquisition. You're hired, Margaret said. When can you start? Tomorrow. Perfect. Welcome to Connect Core. I started the next Monday, and for the first time in almost a year, I felt purpose returning. The office was small, just 23 people crammed into a renovated warehouse space. Everyone was young, energized, slightly manic with startup intensity. I threw myself into work with desperate focus. I built Connect Core's marketing strategy from absolute zero. Brand identity, website copy, social media presence, email campaigns, sales collateral. I worked 12-hour days, but I was walking distance from home, so those hours felt like freedom instead of prison. The company started gaining traction. Our B2B platform solved a real problem for mid-sized businesses trying to manage complex vendor relationships. Clients signed up. Revenue grew. Margaret promoted me to marketing director after 4 months. You saved us, she said. Without your work, we'd still be nobody. I saved money aggressively. Every paycheck, I put aside everything I could. After 4 months, I had enough for a used Toyota. It wasn't fancy. The paint was faded, the interior smelled faintly of the previous owner's cigarettes, and the radio only worked on AM stations. But it was mine. Paid for with my own money, earned through my own work. I cried when I drove it home. Tyler's MBA program continued its golden trajectory through my peripheral vision. I'd blocked my parents on social media, but mutual relatives and friends kept me inadvertently updated. Tyler landed a prestigious summer internship at a top consulting firm. Tyler made law review, whatever that meant for business students. Tyler. I stopped caring. I had my own life now, my own success. Connect Core was growing, and I was the reason why. Then came the Fortune 500 pitch. A major pharmaceutical company, MedPoint, was looking for a B2B software solution to manage their vendor relationships across 53 different facilities. The contract was worth $3.7 million over 5 years. For a startup like Connect Core, landing this client would mean stability, legitimacy, and explosive growth potential. Margaret and I prepared for weeks. I built a marketing presentation that showcased not just our platform's capabilities but the vision behind it. The story of how Connect Core would revolutionize the way large companies managed complex supply chains. The day of the pitch, I wore my best suit, a charcoal gray ensemble I'd bought for the occasion. We walked into MedPoint's headquarters, a gleaming tower in the financial district, and I felt like I'd arrived at the threshold of something monumental. The presentation room held 8 executives. I spoke for 40 minutes, fielding questions, demonstrating the platform, painting pictures of efficiency and cost savings and streamlined operations. Margaret handled the technical details. Together, we were seamless. When we finished, the head of procurement, a man named Brian, smiled broadly. This is exactly what we've been looking for, he said. 2 weeks later, we got the contract. The celebration at Connect Core was euphoric. Margaret opened champagne in the office. People cheered and hugged and talked about how we'd just changed the company's entire trajectory. I stood in the center of it all, feeling vindication settle into my bones. I'd done this. Without my family's support, without their belief, without anything handed to me, I'd built something real. That night, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Gabrielle? Tyler's voice. I hadn't heard it in over 8 months. What do you want? I asked, my good mood evaporating. I want to apologize. Can we meet for coffee? Every instinct screamed no, but curiosity, or maybe some poisonous hope for family reconciliation, made me agree. We met on Saturday at a neutral cafe downtown. Tyler arrived looking different somehow. Older, maybe, or tired. The golden boy sheen had tarnished slightly around the edges. I'm sorry, he said immediately, before I could even sit down. For everything. For the car, for not standing up to Mom and Dad, for being selfish. You sacrificed so much, and I never even thanked you. I sat carefully, studying his face for lies. What changed? I asked. Business school teaches you to think strategically, to see systems and patterns. I started seeing the pattern in our family, how they always chose me, always supported me, always expected you to just manage. It wasn't fair. It was never fair. His words sounded genuine. I wanted to believe them. I can't make it right, he continued. I can't give you back those months of struggling. But I want to try to be a better brother. I want us to have a relationship again. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about the pressure he felt at business school. The imposter syndrome. The fear that he wasn't actually good enough. He asked about my life, and I found myself telling him about Connect Core, about the MedPoint contract, about how I'd rebuilt everything from rubble. That's incredible, he said, and his admiration seemed real. You're incredible. I always knew you were the smart one, the capable one. I think that's why Mom and Dad pushed you so hard to just figure things out, because you always did. It was a rationalization, a way of reframing their neglect as twisted faith in me. But I accepted it because I wanted this bridge between us. We left the cafe with plans to meet again. I felt lighter, like maybe family didn't have to be a wound that never healed. 2 weeks later, everything exploded. Margaret called an emergency meeting on a Wednesday morning. Her face was gray, her hands shaking as she pulled up an email on the conference room screen. MedPoint was pulling the contract. They found a competing startup, Margaret said, her voice hollow. One that somehow has nearly identical marketing materials to ours. Same strategy, same language, same vision. But cheaper. 20% cheaper. My stomach dropped into freefall. They're accusing us of having a security breach, of leaked information. They think we can't be trusted with sensitive corporate data. I pulled up the competitor's website on my laptop. The marketing language was mine. The strategic framework was mine. The entire vision I'd spent weeks developing, now repackaged under a different company name. Who is this company? I asked. Margaret clicked through to their About Us page. 3 founders smiled from the screen. One of them was Tyler. The company name was Elevate Solutions, founded 4 months ago by Tyler and 2 of his MBA classmates. Their flagship product was a B2B vendor management platform, the exact thing I'd told him about at coffee. I called Tyler immediately. He answered on the first ring. Did you steal my work? I demanded. Silence. Tyler, answer me. I didn't steal anything, he said finally. You told me about your company. I did my own research. The market is competitive. Multiple people can have similar ideas. The marketing language is identical. Then maybe we both understand good marketing. You used what I told you. You took my strategy, my vision, everything I shared with you, and you turned it into your own company. It's just business, Gabrielle. You said yourself the market is competitive. I'm using what I learned. Isn't that what MBA programs are for? Taking knowledge and applying it? I hung up and immediately called my parents' house. My mother answered. Did you know about this? I asked. Did you know Tyler started a competing company using my work? Tyler mentioned his startup. Yes, we're very proud of him. Entrepreneurship is exactly what we hoped his education would lead to. He stole from me. He's being innovative, strategic. You should be proud too. Maybe this will teach you to be more careful about sharing proprietary information. I hung up and stared at my phone, watching my reflection in the black screen. They would never see it. They would never see Tyler's fault, my sacrifice, the fundamental unfairness of everything they'd done. In their narrative, Tyler was brilliant and I was careless. Tyler was successful and I was bitter. Connect Core lost the MedPoint contract. Without it, other potential clients started backing out, worried about our security, our stability, our competence. Margaret had to do layoffs. I kept my job but took a 30% pay cut to help keep the company afloat. Tyler's Elevate Solutions, funded by the stolen strategy I'd given him, landed 3 major clients in 2 months. My family celebrated his entrepreneurial spirit. I stopped answering their calls entirely. The months after Tyler's betrayal felt like living in a house, slowly collapsing around me. Connect Core struggled to regain credibility. Margaret worked 18-hour days trying to save the company. I did the same, but we both knew the damage was done. Trust in business is everything, and ours had been shattered. I wanted to sue Tyler. I met with 3 different lawyers, showing them my marketing materials, the dates I'd created them, the proof that Elevate Solutions had launched months after our coffee conversation. Every lawyer told me the same thing. Intellectual property theft is nearly impossible to prove when information was shared in a private, casual conversation. Tyler had modified the materials enough to claim original development. A legal battle would cost tens of thousands of dollars I didn't have, with minimal chance of success. Even if you won, one lawyer said, you'd spend 2 years and $50,000 to get maybe $10,000 in damages. And that's best-case scenario. I was trapped in a nightmare where everyone could see the theft, except the people who mattered. 3 months after the MedPoint disaster, I drove to my parents' house. I hadn't been there since the family dinner disaster, but rage and desperation finally overcame avoidance. My father opened the door, surprise crossing his face. Gabrielle, this is unexpected. We need to talk. I walked past him into the living room where my mother sat reading. She looked up, setting her book aside carefully. About what? My father asked. About Tyler stealing my work. About you supporting him while he destroyed my career. About basic fairness. My mother sighed, the sound conveying exhausted patience with a difficult child. We've been through this. Tyler's startup is doing very well. 3 major clients already. He's proving exactly why we invested in his education. With my car money. And now with my stolen work. My father crossed his arms. Business is business, Gabrielle. If you were careless with your information, that's on you. Tyler saw an opportunity and took it. That's what successful people do. Successful people don't steal. He didn't steal. He learned and applied. There's a difference. I turned to my mother. Do you really not see it? Do you really think this is okay? She met my eyes calmly. I think you're jealous of your brother's success. You've always been competitive with him, even as children. Now he's excelling, and you're struggling, and instead of being happy for him, you're making accusations. The gaslighting was so complete, so effortless, that I almost laughed. I'm not jealous. I'm devastated. You sold my car without asking, giving him money I needed. He used my work to build his company, and you're telling me I'm the problem. My father's expression hardened. We gave Tyler opportunities because he had the potential to make something of them. We were right. Look at him now. Successful, thriving, building something real. I was building something real, until he took it. Then build something better, my mother said simply. Stop whining and do better. I left their house, knowing I'd never have their support, their acknowledgement, their love in any form that mattered. They would always choose Tyler. Always justify his actions, and minimize mine. Always see me as the problem. I drove aimlessly for an hour, finally parking by a lake on the city's edge. I sat watching water lap against the shore and seriously considered giving up. On my career, on success, on ever having a family that didn't feel like an open wound. My phone buzzed. An email from Brian, the MedPoint vice president who'd been in the original pitch meeting. Subject line: coffee? I almost deleted it, but curiosity made me open it. Gabrielle, I've been thinking about your presentation. I know MedPoint pulled the contract, but I voted against that decision. I saw through the plagiarism. Your work was exceptional, and I believe you have significant potential. I'd like to discuss an opportunity. Can we meet this week? Brian. We met 2 days later at a restaurant downtown. Brian was in his late 40s, distinguished and direct in the way of successful corporate executives. I'm leaving MedPoint next month, he said after we ordered, taking a VP position at another pharmaceutical company. Before I go, I wanted to reach out to you. Why? Because I watched you lose something that wasn't your fault. And because talent like yours doesn't come along often. He pulled out a business card. This is for MedPoint's HR department. I've recommended you for a senior marketing manager position in a different division. The pharmaceutical division I currently oversee. I stared at the card. The salary is double what you're making now. The position is stable, corporate, everything a startup isn't. But I'll be honest. It's also leaving Connect Core. Leaving Margaret and your team. Walking away from what you built. Connect Core might not survive anyway, I said quietly. I know. But it might. That's the gamble. I took the card home and sat with it for 3 days. Margaret noticed my distraction. "What's going on?" she asked finally. I showed her Brian's card and told her about the offer. I expected anger, or hurt, or accusations of betrayal. Instead, Margaret smiled sadly. "Take it," she said. "Margaret, Gabrielle, this company might fold in 6 months. I'm fighting to save it, but the odds aren't good. You have a chance at stability, at a real career path. Take it. You've earned it. I don't want to abandon you." "You're not. You're accepting an opportunity I can't give you. That's not abandonment. That's survival." I took the job. My first day at MedPoint was surreal. Corner office, assistant, expense account, the whole corporate experience I'd never imagined having. I was 28 years old, making more money than I'd thought possible, working for a Fortune 500 company. But the night before I started, Tyler's face appeared on my social media feed despite my blocks. A business magazine article. Young entrepreneurs to watch. Tyler Morrison and Elevate Solutions. The article praised his innovative approach, his strategic thinking, his vision for disrupting the B2B software market. It mentioned his parents' support in funding his MBA. It described him as a self-made success. I closed my laptop and tried to feel happy about my own success. But Tyler's stolen triumph poisoned even my legitimate wins. The real twist came 3 days into my new job. My mother called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered reflexively, not thinking. "Gabrielle, I need to tell you something." Her voice was strange, tight with forced casualness. "What?" Tyler's startup received a major investment, $2.5 million from a venture capital firm. My stomach clenched. "The firm is run by your father's college roommate, Charles," Richard called in a favor. "We didn't want you to hear it from somewhere else." I sat down, legs suddenly unreliable. Dad got him the investment? He made an introduction. Charles made his own decision based on Tyler's merit, but Dad opened the door. The same Dad who told me I needed to figure things out on my own. Who refused to lend me $2,000 for a car. Silence. "Tyler's company is now valued at $5 million, my mother continued. "He's doing very well. We thought you should know." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my new office, surrounded by evidence of my own hard-won success, and felt the old wound rip open fresh. The game had been rigged from the start. Tyler got the MBA, the stolen strategy, the parental connections, the venture capital. He got every advantage while I fought for scraps. And he'd still come out ahead, because the system was designed to favor him. I almost called in sick the next day. Almost quit, almost ran, almost surrendered to the crushing weight of inherited injustice. But I didn't. I went to work and started learning everything I could about pharmaceutical marketing. If the game was rigged, I'd find a way to change the game. MedPoint became my obsession. I studied every aspect of the pharmaceutical industry, every regulation, every market trend. I built marketing campaigns that increased product awareness by 43% in my first year. I worked directly with Brian's division on launching a new diabetes medication, and our strategy resulted in sales exceeding projections by 68%. Brian became a mentor in the way I'd always needed. He saw my potential and challenged me to exceed it. He taught me corporate politics, strategic thinking, long-term career planning. Under his guidance, I transformed from a scrappy startup survivor into a polished corporate strategist. 10 months into my role, I was promoted to director of marketing. At 29 years old, I was overseeing a team of 12 people and a 7-figure budget. The money still felt surreal. I paid off my student loans. I moved into a better apartment. I bought a new car, a reliable sedan that I chose myself and paid for in cash. Small victories, but they meant everything. Not everyone celebrated my rise. Harold Thompson, a senior executive who'd been at MedPoint for 26 years, made his disapproval clear. He'd expected the director position for his protégé, Jessica Lang, a woman who'd been at the company for 7 years and had Harold's constant backing. Harold's sabotage started subtly. I'd be left off email chains about important meetings. My reports would somehow get lost before executive reviews. My team's successes would be attributed to department-wide efforts, while our failures would be highlighted as my personal shortcomings. I documented everything, every excluded email, every misattributed success, every subtle undermining. After 3 months, I went to HR with a detailed record. HR investigated and found enough to issue Harold a formal warning, but not enough to take serious action. He was told to include me in all relevant communications and to cease any behavior that could be construed as targeted harassment. Harold became more careful, but more vicious. He couldn't exclude me from meetings anymore, so he'd contradict me in them. He couldn't take credit for my work openly, so he'd imply to executives that my team's success was due to resources he'd allocated or strategies he'd suggested. Jessica, his protégée, seemed almost embarrassed by Harold's favoritism. We developed a cordial working relationship despite the awkwardness. She was competent and professional, just caught in her mentor's political games. I learned to navigate corporate warfare. I built alliances with other directors. I made sure my successes were visible to people above Harold. I played the long game. Meanwhile, Tyler's trajectory continued its golden arc. Elevate Solutions grew steadily. His social media presence was carefully curated. Young entrepreneur, innovative thinker, disrupting industries. Our parents shared every article, every interview, every accolade. I'd stopped looking. I'd blocked them all. Unfollowed every mutual connection. Built walls between myself and my family's alternate reality. I focused on my career with single-minded intensity, using success as a shield against old wounds. Then came the merger announcement. MedPoint revealed they were acquiring a smaller competitor, Helix Pharmaceuticals, in a deal worth $8.3 billion. The merger would create one of the 3 largest pharmaceutical companies in the United States. The announcement came with restructuring plans. Departments would be combined, redundant positions eliminated, leadership roles consolidated, and the vice president of marketing position would be filled by selecting the best candidate from either company. Brian called me into his office the day after the announcement. "You're being considered for VP," he said without preamble. My heart stopped. "You'll be competing against Helix's marketing director, a guy named Samuel Rodriguez. And against Jessica. Harold will push for Jessica hard." "He will. But you've got the track record. The results. The innovation. You've transformed this division's marketing in 18 months. If you want this, you can win it." I wanted it with an intensity that scared me. Vice president at 30. It felt impossible and inevitable simultaneously. I spent the next 3 months preparing. I built a comprehensive 5-year strategic marketing plan. I analyzed every merger challenge, every opportunity, every potential pitfall. I created detailed projections, cost-benefit analyses, competitive landscape assessments. I worked 18-hour days, barely sleeping, fueled by ambition and the ghost of every person who'd ever underestimated me. My presentation to the executive board lasted 2 hours. I walked them through my vision for MedPoint's marketing future. Integrated digital strategies, patient-focused campaigns, innovative approaches to physician outreach, predictive analytics for market trends. When I finished, the room was silent for 3 long seconds. Then the CEO started asking questions. Sharp, probing questions that I answered with detailed precision. The board members nodded, took notes, exchanged meaningful glances. Jessica presented the next day. Her plan was competent but conservative, lacking the innovative edge mine had. I felt confident for the first time in years. Brian found me in my office that evening. "You nailed it," he said. "But I need to warn you. Harold's been lobbying other executives hard, claiming you're too ambitious, a flight risk, not a team player. He's scared of what you do as VP because you won't play his political games." What can I do? Nothing directly. Just keep being excellent. Let your work speak. The decision was scheduled for the following Monday. That gave me 3 days of agonizing waiting, knowing I'd done everything possible but unable to control the outcome. Then Friday happened. A major news investigation broke. MedPoint's flagship diabetes medication, the one my team had launched so successfully, was linked to severe cardiovascular side effects in a small percentage of patients. The news hit like a bomb. Stock prices plummeted 23% in 4 hours. The media descended. Patients' rights groups called for recalls. Lawyers started filing lawsuits. The current VP of marketing, a man named Douglas who was retiring, handled the crisis catastrophically. He issued a defensive press release that blamed patients for not following medication guidelines. He refused to acknowledge any safety concerns. His statements on television were cold, corporate, utterly tone-deaf. By Friday evening, MedPoint was trending on social media as a heartless corporation that cared more about profits than patients. I watched the disaster unfold from my apartment, seeing every mistake, every missed opportunity to control the narrative. This was exactly the kind of crisis that could sink a company, but only if handled wrong. At 11 p.m., unable to sleep, I started writing. A new press statement. A patient outreach strategy. A media approach that acknowledged concerns without admitting liability. A plan to turn the narrative from dangerous company to responsible company taking action. I worked through the night, detailing every step, every message, every tactical decision. At 3 a.m, I emailed the entire strategy directly to the CEO, Marcus Hendricks, a man I'd never directly communicated with before. Subject line: Crisis Management Strategy for Immediate Implementation. I hit send and immediately regretted it. I'd just bypassed every chain of command, contacted the CEO directly in the middle of a crisis, and offered unsolicited advice on a situation above my pay grade. At 6:15 a.m., my phone rang. The CEO's assistant. Miss Morrison, Mr. Hendricks needs you in the office immediately. He's calling an emergency executive meeting at 7 a.m. You're expected to attend. I threw on professional clothes and drove to the office in a daze. The executive boardroom was full when I arrived. Marcus, Brian, Harold, Douglas, the CFO, the chief legal officer, and several other top executives. Marcus gestured to the empty seat beside him. Gabrielle read your strategy last night. It's brilliant. We're implementing it immediately. Walk us through it. For the next hour, I presented my crisis plan. Marcus asked sharp questions. The legal team flagged potential issues that I addressed. Harold sat stone-faced, watching me handle a situation light years beyond my current position. We launched the strategy that morning. New press statement acknowledging patient concerns while committing to transparent investigation. Patient hotline for questions. Proactive outreach to physicians. Media training for our executives, emphasizing empathy and responsibility. Within 48 hours, the narrative shifted. We weren't the heartless corporation anymore. We were the company taking responsibility. Stock prices stabilized, then began recovering. Patient advocacy groups praised our response. Media coverage became neutral, then cautiously positive. Monday morning, Marcus called me into his office. You saved this company, he said simply. That crisis could have cost us billions. Your strategy contained it. Thank you, sir. I'm announcing you as our new Vice President of Marketing. Effective immediately. I was 30 years old, one of the youngest VPs in company history. Harold tried one last maneuver. He told Marcus that Jessica had helped develop the crisis strategy, that it had been a collaborative effort. Marcus asked me directly if that was true. No, sir, I said. I developed it alone on Friday night. I can show you the document creation timestamps if needed. Jessica, to her credit, confirmed the truth when asked. Harold's credibility was damaged beyond repair. I became VP, and my life became something I barely recognized. Success, stability, respect. Everything I'd fought for. Everything I'd been denied by my family. I'd earned it alone, and that made it taste sweeter than any gift. But the universe wasn't finished with me yet. The next 2 years were a blur of success. As VP of Marketing, I transformed how MedPoint connected with patients, physicians, and healthcare systems. I pioneered partnerships with patient advocacy groups, created innovative educational campaigns, and built a marketing team known throughout the pharmaceutical industry for creativity and integrity. The industry noticed. I was featured in Healthcare Marketing magazine. I spoke at conferences. I received job offers from competitors that I politely declined. I was dating someone named Daniel, a cardiologist I'd met at a medical conference. Our relationship was healthy, stable, refreshingly uncomplicated. He respected my ambition. I admired his dedication to patients. We talked about future possibilities without pressure. Life finally felt balanced. I'd built something real, something sustainable, something entirely my own. I rarely thought about my family anymore. That door had closed years ago. I'd made peace with their absence, Or at least I'd learn to live with the scar. Then Marcus announced his retirement. He'd been CEO for 31 years, guiding MedPoint through countless challenges. His departure would mark the end of an era. The board immediately began searching for his replacement. Brian was an obvious candidate. He'd been groomed for leadership, had decades of experience, was respected throughout the company. But the board wanted fresh perspective, innovative thinking, someone who could navigate the rapidly changing pharmaceutical landscape. They started considering external candidates from other pharmaceutical companies, high-profile CEOs with impressive track records. Then board members began approaching me privately. The first was Margaret Liu, a board member who'd been impressed by my crisis management during the medication scandal. She took me to lunch, ostensibly to discuss marketing strategy, but the conversation quickly shifted. "The board is considering internal candidates for CEO," she said carefully. "Your name has come up." I nearly choked on my water. "I'm 32 years old. You're also brilliant, innovative, and you've proven you can handle pressure. Age is less relevant than capability." Other board members followed. Quiet conversations, careful questions, subtle assessments. They wanted to know my vision for the company, my understanding of the industry's future, my leadership philosophy. I realized they were serious. The competition was intense. Brian, me, and 2 external candidates from major competitors. One external candidate was Robert Chen, current CEO of a rival pharmaceutical company, with a reputation for aggressive growth strategies. Over 6 months, I prepared the most important presentation of my life. I developed a comprehensive vision for MedPoint's next decade: patient-centered innovation, ethical marketing practices, sustainable growth models, strategic partnerships with healthcare systems. I met with every board member individually. I answered questions about my age, my experience, my readiness. I was honest about my limitations while demonstrating my strengths. Brian supported me throughout, even though we were competing. He told me privately, "If I don't get it, I hope you do." This company needs fresh thinking. The board scheduled final presentations for August. I practiced obsessively, refining every slide, every argument, every vision statement. Then, in July, my carefully rebuilt world cracked open. A news alert appeared on my phone. Elevate Solutions declares bankruptcy. Tyler's company had collapsed. I clicked through article after article, piecing together the story. Elevate Solutions had grown too fast on insufficient foundation. The stolen strategy that had launched them had carried them only so far. When faced with real competition and real scaling challenges, they'd crumbled. Clients left. Revenue plummeted. The venture capital ran dry. Tyler was being sued by investors, including his father's friend Charles, for mismanagement and misrepresentation of company capabilities. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sad for the waste of potential. Then my phone rang. A number I'd blocked years ago, calling from a different line. "My mother." "Against my better judgment," I answered. "Gabrielle." Her voice was raw, unfamiliar. "We need help." "What happened?" "Everything. Tyler's company failed. We invested our retirement savings. All of it. It's gone. Your father had a stroke last month from the stress. The medical bills are destroying us. Tyler's drowning in legal fees. We're going to lose the house." The words came out mechanical, practiced, desperate. "Why are you calling me?" "Because you're the only one who can help us. You're doing so well. You have money, stability. We need a loan. You sold my car to fund Tyler's MBA. You refused to lend me $2,000 when I was unemployed. You supported him while he stole my work and destroyed my company. And now you want my help? I know we hurt you." Her voice broke. "I know we made mistakes. But we're family. That has to mean something." I stood in my office, looking out at the city skyline, processing a decade of pain and betrayal compressed into one phone call. "Is Tyler there?" I asked. "No, he's at his apartment. He can barely function. He's applying everywhere for jobs. But his reputation is destroyed. No startup will touch him. He's applying for entry-level positions just to survive." "Where is he applying?" "Everywhere. He sent out hundreds of applications. He doesn't even know where anymore." He's desperate, Gabrielle. We all are. After she hung up, I sat motionless for 20 minutes. Then I called HR. Can you send me a list of all recent job applications across all departments? I asked. That's unusual, but yes. May I ask why? Just a hunch about something. The list arrived an hour later. 347 applications received in the past month. I searched for Tyler's name. There it was. Tyler Morrison. Application for Business Development Associate position. Entry level. Salary $48,000 annually. The MBA that cost my car had led him here, applying for entry-level positions at the company where I was about to potentially become CEO. The irony was so complete it felt scripted. I looked at his application materials. His resume carefully omitted Elevate Solutions bankruptcy, listing it instead as entrepreneurial venture with strategic conclusion. His cover letter spoke about wanting to learn from experienced leaders, to contribute to a stable, ethical company, to rebuild his career on a foundation of integrity. No mention of stolen work. No mention of failure. Just careful corporate language designed to hide truth. I had a choice to make. I could reject his application with one click. No one would question it. He'd never know I'd seen it. He'd move on to the next rejection in a long line of them. Or I could do something else. The board announced their CEO decision on a Tuesday morning in September. They chose me. At 32, I became CEO of MedPoint, a Fortune 500 pharmaceutical company with 43,000 employees and annual revenue of $14 billion. The announcement made national business news. Articles focused on my age, my rapid rise, my innovative approach. My story became a narrative about merit overcoming obstacles, about new leadership for a new era. My family saw the news. My mother called 6 times. My father, recovered enough from his stroke to use a phone, left voicemails. Tyler sent a long email I deleted without reading. I didn't respond to any of them. I had a company to run. And I had a job application to address. My first week as CEO was a whirlwind of meetings, press interviews, and strategic planning sessions. Brian became my COO, providing experienced guidance as I navigated the overwhelming responsibility of leading a massive corporation. The board expressed confidence in my vision. Employees responded positively to my emphasis on ethical practices and patient-centered innovation. On Friday evening, Daniel took me to dinner at our favorite restaurant and proposed. The ring was simple, elegant, perfect. I said yes without hesitation. Life had exceeded every dream I'd allowed myself to have. But Tyler's application sat in my inbox, unanswered. Monday morning of my second week, I called HR, the Business Development Associate position. I want to personally interview one of the candidates. That's unusual for a CEO-level review, but certainly. Which candidate? Tyler Morrison. My assistant scheduled the interview for Wednesday afternoon. I didn't tell Tyler who would be interviewing him. The email just said, interview scheduled with senior leadership. Wednesday arrived. I wore my most professional suit, a navy ensemble that conveyed authority without arrogance. I positioned myself behind my desk. CEO badge clearly visible on the polished wood surface. My assistant buzzed. Mr. Morrison is here. Send him in. The door opened. Tyler walked in, resume folder in hand, wearing a suit that had seen better days. He looked tired, older than his 30 years, the golden boy shine completely extinguished. He glanced at me, then did a double take. Recognition hit him like a physical blow. His face went pale. The resume folder slipped from his fingers, papers scattering across the floor. Gabrielle, he whispered. Have a seat, Tyler. He stood frozen, processing. His eyes moved from me to the CEO badge on my desk, to the city view behind me, back to my face. I didn't know, he stammered. I didn't know you worked here. I didn't know you were. The CEO? No, I suppose you wouldn't. We haven't spoken in 4 years. He bent to pick up his scattered papers, hands shaking. When he sat across from me, he looked like a man facing execution. Tell me about your qualifications for this position, I said, voice professionally neutral. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. Gabrielle, I'm so sorry. For everything. I know I don't deserve your qualifications, Tyler. This is a job interview. He swallowed hard and attempted to compose himself. He talked about his MBA, carefully avoiding mention of how it was funded. He discussed Elevate Solutions, using the same euphemistic language from his resume about strategic wind-down. Let me ask you directly, I interrupted. Why did your company fail? Silence stretched between us. Because I took shortcuts, he said finally, voice barely audible. Because I built it on someone else's foundation instead of my own. Because when things got hard, I didn't have the real skills to handle it. I just had borrowed ideas and family connections. It was the first, truly honest thing he'd said. And the strategies you used to launch Elevate Solutions. Where did those come from? Tears started running down his face. From you. I stole them from you. I took what you shared and I used it to compete against you. I destroyed your company's contract. I hurt people who trusted you, all because I wanted success without earning it. I let the silence sit. I don't expect you to hire me, he continued. I wouldn't hire me if I were you. I wouldn't blame you if you rejected this application and never spoke to me again. I've spent 4 years watching you succeed while I failed, and I finally understand why. You worked for everything. I was just given things and thought that made me special. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Mom called me, I said without turning around. Told me about Dad's stroke. About the bankruptcy. About losing everything. I'm sorry they called you. You don't owe us anything. No, I don't. I turned to face him. Do you remember what you told me when I asked for help buying a car? You said you needed to focus on your future. That I'd always talked about being independent. He nodded miserably. That MBA my car paid for? It got you nothing. Because you didn't earn anything that came after it. You took shortcuts. You used people. And in the end, shortcuts lead nowhere. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you took from me? Not just the car, not just the business strategy. You took years of my life. Years I spent struggling, fighting, rebuilding from nothing, while you coasted on family money and stolen work. I understand, he said. I've spent the last 6 months living what you lived. No money, no prospects, no one willing to help. Except I deserved it. You didn't. I walked back to my desk and sat down. Tyler looked at me with resigned acceptance, waiting for the rejection he knew he'd earned. I'm not going to hire you for this position, I said. He nodded, started to stand. But I'm going to give you something better. He froze. A 6-month unpaid internship. Entry level. Absolute bottom of the corporate ladder. You'll work under a junior manager named Sarah Chen in our business development department. You'll do whatever she asks. You'll learn this business from the ground up. The hard way, the real way. His eyes widened. If you prove yourself in 6 months, if you demonstrate actual work ethic and real capability, I'll consider offering you a paid position. And Tyler? I'll know. Sarah will report directly to me about your performance. 1 hint of shortcuts, 1 moment of entitled behavior, and you're done. Why? He whispered. After everything I did, why would you help me? I'm not helping you. I'm giving you the opportunity to help yourself. Something no one gave me. Someone once gave me a chance when I had nothing. And that chance changed my life. You need to learn what it means to actually build something instead of taking it. Consider this business school, the real version. He was crying openly now. I don't deserve this. No, you don't. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I'm not our parents. Because I'm breaking the cycle of conditional love and favoritism. Because I choose to be someone who gives people real chances to earn their success. Tyler wiped his eyes, struggling to compose himself. What about Mom and Dad? I'll help them with medical bills. But there are conditions. Family therapy. Real acknowledgement of the harm they caused. No more enabling. No more favoritism. They participate in fixing what they broke, or they get nothing. They won't like that. I don't care if they like it. This is what ethical support looks like. It's not throwing money at problems. It's requiring accountability and change. I stood, signaling the interview was over. Tyler stood too, uncertain. Report to Sarah's office Monday morning at 8 a.m., I said. Don't be late. And Tyler? This is your last chance. Use it wisely. He left my office, and I sat down heavily in my chair. Mercy without boundaries isn't kindness. It's enabling. I'd given Tyler an opportunity, but I'd also set clear expectations and consequences. He'd have to earn his way forward, just like I had. Daniel asked me that night why I'd done it. I could have destroyed him, I said. One click, and his application would have disappeared. He'd never know. Perfect revenge, but you didn't. Because revenge would have meant he'd changed me, made me bitter, cruel, petty. I won't let what they did define who I become. 6 months later, Sarah reported that Tyler was excelling. He was humble, hardworking, eager to learn. He showed up early, stayed late, asked thoughtful questions, and took criticism gracefully. He was, finally, earning something. I offered him a full-time position as a business development associate, competitive salary, standard benefits, no special treatment, just fair treatment. At a company event, a young employee asked me about my success story, about rising from marketing manager to CEO in 4 years. I thought about the driveway 5 years ago, watching a stranger drive away in my Honda Civic, about every obstacle that had seemed insurmountable becoming an opportunity, about learning that your value isn't determined by who believes in you, but by who you become when no one does. Success isn't about proving people wrong, I said. It's about proving yourself right. About becoming someone who breaks cycles instead of perpetuating them. My parents attended their first family therapy session 2 weeks later. It was painful, confrontational, necessary. They had to hear, really hear, what their favoritism had cost. They had to acknowledge that their investment in Tyler had been funded by my sacrifice. They had to understand that love with conditions isn't love at all. It didn't fix everything. Years of hurt don't heal in an afternoon, but it was a beginning. Tyler and I would never be close the way siblings should be. Too much damage lay between us. But we were building something tentative and honest. He was learning to be someone worth respecting. I was learning that grace doesn't require forgiveness. Just the willingness to let people change. My wedding to Daniel was small, intimate, perfect. My parents attended, subdued, and respectful. Tyler was there, and when he congratulated me, I saw genuine happiness in his eyes alongside the shame he'd probably carry forever. The car they sold without my permission had been worth $6,000. That $6,000 had transformed into Tyler's failed company, my rebuilt life, and eventually a lesson neither of us would forget. Shortcuts don't lead anywhere worth going. Standing at my office window 6 months after becoming CEO, I watched the city lights flicker to life in the dusk. I'd built a career on merit, earned respect through competence, achieved success without compromise. I'd turned betrayal into fuel and injustice into determination. Some people are given everything and build nothing. Others are given nothing and build everything. I'd learned which one I wanted to be, and that made all the difference. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a family member or someone close to you take credit for your work or benefit from your sacrifice without acknowledgement? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories about overcoming family betrayal and workplace injustice. And share this with someone who needs to hear that success built on your own merit is sweeter than any handout. Thank you so much for listening to my journey. I hope it reminded you that your worth isn't defined by who supports you, but by who you become despite everything. Until next time, keep building your future on your own terms.